Hey all, Ron here from Military Images Magazine with a new episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail. If you look at the title, you're probably wondering who is Fraz, who is Harry, and what do these two people have to do with battlefield and portrait photography from the Civil War period? Well, if you were alive in the 1970s and you were of a certain age, anywhere from probably about, I don't know, 8 years old to 80, um, you were a student of the Civil War, you went crazy when you saw a new book that came out that year called Gettysburg, A Journey in Time. The author of that book was William Frassanito, and Bill, as some people know him, but many people know him as Fraz. And that's where the Fraz comes from. Fraz made a cottage industry that turned into a massively interesting topic around Civil War photography. Bill's book and the ones that followed were able to use his unique methodology to pinpoint those places on the battlefields of Gettysburg and Antietam where the photographs were exactly taken. His comparisons of the original wartime photographs to modern images of those same locations on the battlefield just ignited interest in going to see the battlefields. It ignited interest in the Civil War, and it inspired many people, an entire legion of folks who traveled to the battlefields, became interested in books about Civil War battlefield photography, and just became a big part of the lives of so many individuals, myself included. Now, you may be wondering, who is Harry? Well, Harry is one of those legion of individuals who became fascinated and under the spell of Frassanito's book. Now, Harry did something that many people didn't. He turned his interest into a different segment of Civil War photography. His segment was portrait photography. He followed in Bill's footsteps. And so Harry Roach was the founder of Military Images Magazine. And I'm the editor today. I'm the fourth editor and publisher. Harry was the founding editor. In 2016, I asked him if he would write up his early inspiration. And that's when I found out about his connection to Fraz and battlefield photography and how that inspired him. So I want to read a couple of passages from the write-up that he did for us, just to give you some sense of how he became interested and how he did what he did. So it also connects to the photograph that I'm showing you right here. So here we go. This is Harry speaking. The genesis of MI began, and MI is Military Images. The genesis of MI began with two events in 1975 that had a huge impact for me. First, Mrs. Jan Sanger gave me an heirloom albumin print of her Civil War ancestors, the Warner brothers. There's four of them pictured here. The other event, Scribner's published William Frassanito's first book, Gettysburg, A Journey in Time. The Warner albumin added the first large format image to my collection and provided me with identified subjects whose military service I could research. I'd always been interested in common soldiers, and the quest for information on the Warners convinced me that their pictures needed to be seen. My recollections are extremely hazy on this next point, but probably around 1977, I sent an article on the brothers, the Warner brothers, to a major magazine, or perhaps just a query, which received a rejection along the lines of, quote, "We do not cover this sort of material." I thought, who does? And this led to my next question: why not me? Ultimately, the Warners became the cover story for the first issue of Military Images. Frassanito's unique analysis of the Gettysburg battlefield views showed that Civil War photographs possessed a great deal of information and misinformation in the captions that hitherto had been overlooked. Frassanito's rigorous photo sleuthing had no bigger fan than I. Like Frassanito, I am a Vietnam veteran. My training as a photo analyst and air intelligence gave me a great appreciation of his near microscopic attention to detail in period photos. Frassanito demonstrated a new way to look at battlefield images at a time when more and more collectors showed an increased interest in Civil War photos of all types. In 1978, Frassanito's second book debuted, Antietam, The Photographic Legacy of America's Bloodiest Day. It grabbed me as forcefully as had Gettysburg. Frassanito's Antietam continued his deep analysis of battlefield views, but also added a new and engaging element, vignettes of soldier participants. I cannot recall a specific moment when or if the Antietam book ignited a flare in my head, but it certainly contributed to my sense that the time was right for a periodical covering common soldier images. By 1978, I'd completed graduate school and was working at Valley Forge as a research historian for the National Park Service. I began laying the groundwork for Military Images magazine on nights and weekends, lining up authors, photographing collections, and enlisting subscribers. The first issue of Military Images was mailed in June of 1979. So there you have it, how Bill Frassanito, Fraz, how Fraz's first book, Journey in Time, and then his other book on Antietam, all of this in the mid to late 1970s, ignited a passion in Harry Roach to do the same for portrait photography as Fraz did for Civil War battlefield photography. So the reason I wanted to share this is partly because I wanted to put Civil War battlefield photography in perspective to Civil War portrait photography, but the opposite is also true. When I come on this show every weekday and talk about these soldier images, at some point you may be wondering, where did that interest come from? Why are Civil War portrait photographies on the map? Why do people study them? Why do people collect them? Why do people research them? Well, I want to believe that maybe they do it because of the passion, the interest in history, because they're students of the Civil War. And I know all of those things are true. Once you connect with these Civil War soldiers and get a sense of their contributions, it really does become quite addictive, at least for me. But I also think that part of the story, and a thank you, is due to Bill Frassanito, to Fraz, for inspiring so many people with the idea that a photograph of the Civil War was something that we should pay attention to because it opened a window into history, to the visual history of that very unique, catastrophic period in our history. So that's it for today. We will see you on the next episode. Until then, take care.